pounds from Benitez's forehead. And there was Benitez.
Wilfred Benitez was boxing's youngest world champion and most gifted defensive artist, a Puerto Rican genius whose natural instincts and fluid movements created poetry inside violent surroundings.
All kinds of punches. He thrown both hands. I believe it was the left hand that started it. Right hand, and he's down and draped across the ropes.
The teenage prodigy possessed intuitive abilities that separated him from ordinary fighters who relied on learned techniques rather than inherited talent for avoiding punishment while delivering precise counterattacks.
Balance and leverage, and comes with a good right hand, which puts Hope down.
Benitez represented boxing's purest form through effortless artistry that made complex defensive maneuvers appear simple, while frustrating aggressive opponents who could not solve his elusive style. His success came through natural gifts rather than systematic training, creating resentment among fighters who worked harder but achieved less through conventional preparation methods. Some opponents questioned his commitment and suggested that his defensive style represented cowardice rather than superior boxing intelligence. Others attacked his cultural background and implied that Puerto Rican fighters received favorable treatment from judges who appreciated flashy techniques over sustained aggression and forward pressure. Benitez carried deep grudges against fighters who failed to respect his natural talents while spreading lies about his defensive methods being somehow inferior to crude attacking styles that lacked sophistication and technical merit. We're examining 6 boxers who earned Wilfred Benitez's lasting contempt by questioning his artistic genius and learning that doubting the youngest champion meant facing systematic destruction through superior defensive skills combined with devastating counterattacking ability that proved age meant nothing against pure talent. 6. Antonio Cervantes. Starting at number 6 is Antonio Cervantes, the Colombian veteran whose dismissive attitude toward Benitez's youth and inexperience represented the old guard's resistance to teenage champions who threatened established hierarchies through natural talent rather than paying traditional dues through extensive apprenticeships. Cervantes possessed years of professional experience and believed that championship boxing required maturity and seasoning that could not be replaced by raw ability or natural defensive instincts. His condescending approach to their encounter reflected broader generational conflicts about whether young fighters deserved immediate title opportunities without proving themselves against quality opposition over extended periods. The cultural dimension added complexity as Cervantes viewed himself as representing authentic Latin American boxing traditions, while dismissing Benitez as a manufactured product of American promotional machinery. Their rivalry became symbolic of different approaches to fighter development and the value of experience versus natural ability in determining championship readiness. Benitez found Cervantes' attitude personally insulting because it suggested that his achievements were somehow illegitimate due to his age rather than recognizing his superior skills and natural advantages over aging champions who relied on experience to compensate for declining physical abilities. The veteran's dismissive comments motivated Benitez to prove that youth and talent could overcome age and experience when properly applied through superior technique. Their encounter became Benitez's opportunity to demonstrate that natural defensive genius could neutralize veteran craftiness while establishing new standards for championship excellence that transcended traditional expectations about fighter development and professional seasoning requirements. At number 5 is Carlos Palomino, the Mexican-American champion whose aggressive style and relentless pressure created the most difficult stylistic challenge that Benitez faced during his early championship reign, while testing his defensive abilities against sustained forward movement and volume punching. Palomino represented everything that troubled Benitez about facing determined opponents who possessed sufficient conditioning and mental toughness to maintain constant pressure throughout entire fights. The Mexican warrior's approach required Benitez to demonstrate sustained defensive excellence rather than relying on periodic brilliance to control tactical situations and competitive momentum. The stylistic clash intensified when Palomino began targeting Benitez's body through systematic attacks designed to slow his movement and reduce his defensive mobility over extended championship rounds. Palomino understood that defeating elusive fighters required patience and sustained effort rather than seeking dramatic knockout opportunities that played into their strengths. Benitez discovered that his natural defensive gifts had limitations when facing opponents who combined intelligence with relentless work rate and refused to be discouraged by early defensive success. Palomino's persistence forced Benitez to dig deeper into his tactical arsenal while maintaining defensive discipline under sustained pressure that tested his concentration and physical conditioning. Their battles revealed character traits in Benitez that surprised observers who had questioned whether artistic fighters possessed the determination necessary for grueling championship competition against opponents who specialized in making fights ugly and physically demanding rather than allowing technical exhibitions and defensive artistry to determine outcomes. The Olympic golden boy, whose media attention and promotional advantages created bitter jealousy in Benitez, who watched an inferior fighter receive superior recognition and commercial opportunities despite possessing lesser natural ability and defensive skills. Leonard represented everything frustrating about boxing's commercial priorities that rewarded marketability over pure boxing ability while creating artificial stars through promotional manipulation rather than recognizing authentic talent and technical superiority. Benitez possessed superior defensive instincts and natural boxing gifts, but received minimal media coverage compared to Leonard's manufactured celebrity status. The promotional disparity became obvious when Leonard's team received massive television contracts and marketing campaigns, while Benitez fought comparable opponents for significantly smaller purses, despite demonstrating superior technical ability and defensive artistry. The systematic favoritism reflected broader issues about which fighters deserved recognition based on ability versus commercial potential and promotional connections. Benitez resented Leonard's calculated career path that avoided dangerous opponents while building artificial credibility against aging veterans and carefully selected challengers who enhanced his reputation without providing genuine tests of his abilities. Leonard's protected development contrasted sharply with Benitez's willingness to face quality opposition from the beginning of his championship reign. Their eventual encounter became Benitez's opportunity to expose Leonard's limitations while proving that natural ability would always defeat promotional hype when tested under genuine championship pressure. The fight represented more than athletic competition because it offered validation for authentic talent over manufactured stardom and commercial manipulation that had dominated welterweight boxing during their era. The Panamanian savage, whose crude fighting methods and primitive approach to boxing violated every principle of technical excellence that Benitez considered essential for legitimate championship competition and artistic expression within violent sport requiring sophisticated skills. Duran embodied everything that Benitez despised about boxing's anti-intellectual tendencies that celebrated raw aggression over refined technique, while suggesting that street fighting instincts were somehow superior to educated defensive methods and tactical preparation. Their philosophical differences reflected broader cultural divisions about boxing's proper evolution and artistic possibilities. The stylistic confrontation intensified when Duran's relentless pressure and body attacks tested Benitez's defensive systems against sustained violence that could not be neutralized through periodic brilliance or tactical adjustments. Duran represented the kind of primitive opponent whose success threatened to validate crude methods over sophisticated boxing artistry. Benitez found Duran's approach personally offensive because it reduced championship boxing to street fighting while dismissing the intellectual elements that separated authentic boxing from mere violence between untrained individuals. Duran's success challenged Benitez's fundamental beliefs about boxing's capacity for artistic expression and technical sophistication. Their encounters forced Benitez to prove that defensive artistry could survive against primitive violence when properly applied through superior conditioning and tactical discipline. Duran's defeat validated Benitez's belief that sophisticated technique would ultimately triumph over crude aggression when combined with natural ability and proper preparation methods. 2. Thomas Hearns. Number 2 is Thomas Hearns, The Detroit Destroyer, whose superior physical advantages and devastating power represented the ultimate test of Benitez's defensive abilities against an opponent who possessed both natural gifts and technical development that could neutralize defensive brilliance through raw, destructive capability. Hearns combined exceptional reach and knockout power with systematic training that created the most dangerous combination of physical tools and technical preparation that Benitez would face during his championship career. The Detroit fighter's ability to end fights with single punches created psychological pressure that affected Benitez's normal defensive confidence and tactical decision-making. The physical mismatch became apparent when Hearns' superior size and reach advantages created competitive situations where Benitez's defensive skills might prove insufficient against an opponent who possessed both power and technique. Hearns represented everything that Benitez feared about facing naturally gifted opponents whose physical advantages could overcome defensive artistry. Benitez realized that his defensive genius had limitations when confronting opponents who combined superior physical tools with legitimate boxing skills and knockout power that could end competitive encounters regardless of technical superiority or defensive brilliance. Hearns' success challenged fundamental assumptions about defensive boxing's effectiveness against elite competition. Their rivalry represented Benitez's greatest fear about facing opponents whose natural advantages could neutralize his defensive superiority through overwhelming physical capabilities that transcended technical considerations and artistic boxing principles that had defined his previous championship success against lesser physical specimens. 1. Sugar Ray Leonard. And finally, at number 1, the most bitter rivalry of all, Sugar Ray Leonard, the manufactured golden boy whose systematic campaign to diminish Benitez's achievements while stealing credit for technical innovations represented the ultimate betrayal of authentic boxing artistry by commercially driven promotional machinery. Leonard's media manipulation and promotional advantages allowed him to overshadow Benitez's superior natural ability while creating false narratives about their respective skills and championship credentials that favored commercial appeal over technical merit and defensive excellence. Leonard's success despite inferior natural ability proved that promotional manipulation could overcome authentic talent when combined with favorable media coverage and strategic opponent selection that avoided genuine threats to manufactured reputations. Benitez watched inferior fighters achieve greater recognition through commercial considerations rather than boxing merit. Their encounters became personal vendettas, as Benitez sought to expose Leonard's limitations while proving that authentic talent would ultimately defeat promotional hype and manufactured credibility through superior performance when tested under genuine championship conditions against quality opposition. Benitez never forgave Leonard for representing everything wrong with boxing's commercial evolution that prioritized entertainment value over authentic artistry while systematically destroying the reputations of naturally gifted fighters who possessed superior abilities that could not be replicated through promotional manipulation or media campaigns designed to create artificial stars. From artistic genius to commercial manipulation, Wilfred Benitez learned that natural talent couldn't overcome promotional machinery. Which rivalry revealed boxing's true priorities? Subscribe for more defensive masterclass breakdowns and forgotten champion stories.